Welcome everyone to this webinar by PRGX, how data and technology are transforming recovery audit. The one thing that is consistent about recovery audits is that they are a best practice for any organisation managing their cash. However, what has changed in the last 50 years is the way audits are conducted, the speed at which the data can be consumed, and the analytical insight that can be gained to support the business's priorities. So in this webinar, we will chat through an overview of how data and technology are transforming recovery audits and the impact this has on the source-to-pay process by improving the speed, thoroughness, and effectiveness of audits. So thanks for taking about 30 minutes out of your day to join us today. So just a few housekeeping items before we get started. Let us know through the question box if you are having any issues with the audio or seeing the slides. You can also ask questions throughout the webinar in the question box, and we will do our best to answer these at the end. You can also follow PRGX on Twitter and LinkedIn to get alerts of more upcoming webinars, and we actually have several coming up through May and June, and many more available on demand. So we have pulled in 3 experienced technology and analytical minds to help us with this webinar today. Amir Kurapaya is the Chief Technology Officer at PRGX. He has over 20 years of industry experience that includes expertise in creating software for automation, enterprise resource planning, supply chain, and financial applications. Greg Corey is the Chief Product Officer at PRGX. Greg has led the product and technology strategies for SaaS and managed service companies, and that drives PRGX's product roadmap. And Jen Rowe is the VP of Advanced Analytics here at PRGX. Jen's built award-winning source-to-pay and analytics platforms with Accenture, McKesson, and Seal Software. And his role is focused on generating actionable insights for customers that aid in incisive decision-making, utilizing the best techniques in the field of data science and BI. So Greg, I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Amir. Thanks, Tim. And thanks, everybody, for your time this afternoon. So since all of us are pretty much stuck at home and we're not able to take vacations, I'm going to take us on a quick trip to Disney World. And there is a ride there called Carousel of Progress that talks about the history of time and how we get to today. And if you've been on that ride, you shift, a decade or so every time. And so we want to look back first at kind of where have we come from, in the history of recovery audit. It's been around for many decades, but even just looking back to the 1990s, as recent as that, there was really still a paper-based opportunity there for these auditors in front of them. They would literally get stacks and stacks of papers, contracts, deal sheets, invoices, and they would pour through those, looking for errors and omissions. So their tools of the trade at that time were copy machines and fax machines. Gradually, they started to move from handwritten claims, to typing up claims in Excel. So that was technology in the 1990s for recovery audit. As you moved into the 2000s, then you started to see, the digital revolution that we saw in most industries, more adoption of technology for ERPs and back office software. And so that dramatically increased, the amount of data that the auditors had available to them. The volume of data, though, would not be something they could just get over the wire. So they literally would get CDs and eventually DVDs of data, backups from these ERP systems and back office systems that they had to pour through using tools like Excel, FoxPro, Microsoft Access, a lot of the desktop type database tools. And so still somewhat of a manual process, scrubbing the data, running calculations and algorithms in Excel and Access to find their claims and generate them and then share them with clients. All right, so as we look into the 2010s, you really start to see now some better adoption of newer tools. The back office systems and the ERPs that got better, but they still weren't solving a lot of the issues. There was really an expectation that as the back-end systems got better, these companies would not experience as many issues, but that really wasn't the case. There's still a lot of systems that weren't talking to each other, so you really still had a lot of errors in data, missing data, and things like that led to the same types of claims that we've always seen. And so the auditors were still using some of the tools they were before, Audit, Excel, and Access, but gradually there started to come available commercial auditing tools for both internal audit teams, and for third-party auditors. So end-to-end web-based tools, some PC-based tools that were really just a Microsoft Access platform taken to a more enterprise level. But there really still wasn't much advanced technology there. Toward the end of the decade, you started to see workflow, you started to see automation, and gradually, really in the last few years, artificial intelligence and machine learning could start to play a role in auditing. You saw improvements in OCR, the ability for technology to read documents and pull information out. So toward the end of the decade, you really started to see those types of tools take the place of some of the mundane tasks that auditors were doing. All right, so what do we expect for this decade and that we're in now? Certainly a lot more advancements in automation and workflow. You really start to see advancements in applying artificial intelligence and machine learning to the audit practices. So you think about reading a contract or reading an invoice, those tasks should now be automated so that nobody's having to go through them manually and really remove some of the human error there. And with all this, each decade there's been more data. That's really the exciting part of how much data is available to us. And Jen will talk about this later, what we can do with that data, the types of analytics and modeling we can do to find new opportunities for clients. And so going from paper to CDs and from Access and Excel to modern technology, really just in the past 30 years or so, and what's going to happen over the next 10, it's really going to be exponential growth in productivity for the auditors. So let's dig in a little bit deeper now and talk about the whole end-to-end process. So when you think about auditing, it really starts with the data. We think about all the different systems we might be getting data from. And we need to get that data out of those systems and then run some logic against the data sets to identify maybe there's a shortage in funding for a particular promotion. Maybe the payment terms aren't being applied correctly for a particular contract. Maybe the wrong pricing has been applied somewhere else. All those different types of claims that can be identified, having audit logic that is dialed in, is able to see all the different variations. That's that next step. Collect the data and then run it through all this different logic that really has been in the heads of auditors, has been in their Excel spreadsheets, but putting that in a system that can run all that automagically, if you will. That provides then a starting point for the audit process. We've identified potential errors, potential exceptions, and now you work through those issues and identify which ones are real and which ones aren't, validating with other data sets, and increasing the confidence level on a particular issue so that you can then submit that for resolution with the vendor. So the first three steps are collecting the data and auditing it, and then presenting the claims. It used to be, again, we talked about it earlier, the paper-based. Now getting online approvals, much like you see a DocuSign or something like that, where you can send something electronically for review and approval. Putting claims in front of vendors for faster issue resolution, reduces vendor abrasion and speeds up time to recovery. But as you look at those first four steps, there's an opportunity for us to actually start to identify these errors earlier. Historically, a lot of the auditing that's gone on has been, 6 months after the fact, maybe even longer than that. So as technology has improved, there's a chance for us to actually start looking at the data much sooner, right after the transaction, or potentially in the middle of it, or even before it. So catching, if a deal was entered into your deal system incorrectly, catching that error before the deal even goes live. So we can perform those first three steps at any point in time now, and we're trying to do that even earlier because, again, that prevents errors, so that improves your relationship with the vendors. So you get through those first four steps, and you think about all the things you can do with this. You can find out, where are we having the most issues with which vendors, which contracts. And then other opportunities, as I look at across the data, I'm seeing, I've got different payment terms with the same vendor across my different divisions. So there's a lot of things you can do with the data there, and Amir and Jim talk about that, to really provide a lot of value to the business. So you step back and look at all the different tools. You think about this process end to end, and by having better technology, seamless movement from each step to the next, you really start to streamline the entire auditing process. All right, so digging down one more layer here. So we talked about the trends over the years, we talked about the process. If we look at the individual tools, all right, and the types of functionality that we really want to have available to us, we've got this feature wheel here that is something to consider. As you go through all the different stages that I was just talking about of data collection and analysis, you think about where can AI fit in, for example. So contracts intelligence on the left there, the ability for us to process contracts and identify payment terms, identify pricing schedules, things like that in an automated fashion, so that an auditor is not having to go through a 60-page contract and manually type that information into another system. You know, having an AI engine that can read those things and do it automatically. Other steps in here are really just bringing things together. So which vendors do you want to focus on? What thresholds do you want to set for dollar amounts and things like that, transaction volume? Being able to really slice and dice the data any which way from Sunday that you need to. So the data visualization, going beyond what you would do in Access or Excel and providing some advanced analytics, you know, that type of visualization is where you start to see some trends that you wouldn't have expected. You know, for some companies, there's a lot of opportunity in looking at procurement emails and emails from your purchasing teams, understand where maybe some terms were agreed to in email that never made it into the contract. So you know, having the ability to process and identify emails automatically that have some relevant evidence and information for finding a claim is important. And then lastly, just to wrap this up, the putting this in front of the vendor in a seamless way, so providing the vendor visibility into what's going on and the opportunity to resolve things faster and earlier in the process. So putting reports and dashboards and claims right in front of them in a portal really makes it more of a seamless experience for them. So when you think about these tools, you know, you need all of them in some cases, you need a few of them in other cases, but this rounds out the tool set. So going from copy machines and fax machines, you know, 10 or 20 years ago, to having these tools in front of you really makes the auditors more productive. All right, Amir, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Greg. From a streamlining of data acquisition, data becomes more critical in terms of what we do as part of the audit process. So there are various data sources, and the data sources have grown enormously in the types, formats, variation, and the complexity, structure, unstructured. In the gray box, you would see the type of structured and unstructured data a company can be challenged with in terms of interpreting them, and also the operational challenges that a business can be faced, which is not uncommon with the large businesses. The good news is PRGX provides a solution which combines big data analytics with very experienced auditors and the time to manage these projects. How we are approaching from a technology play standpoint. PRGX has a data foundation layer. Epiphany Data Foundation is the tool technology play we have in terms of providing the rapid ingestion of data with the standardization and the processing of enormous volume of data and unstructured, either it could be an unstructured data or structured data. It provides us the starting point in terms of ingesting this data and providing the data for our next step auditing process. And within the Varagon platform, PRGX has built the Panoptic Compliance Audit Platform helps to provide the claim identification, claim management, audit process, and other areas of the auditing side. And also beyond this, our Lumen Analytics, what Jin will talk about, provides the capability of insights with the data that we have. In terms of streamlining this data, when it comes for ingestion, what Epiphany provides us is it's a foundation for us. The platform can handle any complexities, any kind of format, complexities within the format, and volume of data. It could be any variation of any of those complexities. Still, our platform can process in a very efficient manner. We do it in three stages. One is the data preparation, data load, and data transform. This happens in a very scalable, clustered architecture that has many microservices that does the work behind the scene. And it helps us to accelerate, scale, wherever we need to scale in terms of scaling specific areas of the application. That's what this platform is all about. And at the end, when you route the data through our platform, it creates a collection of this data files in a repository fashion where the incremental data loads can be handled very effectively. So it's like configure the first-time configuration. You just do the first-level configuration in terms of what our clients are providing for the data, format, structures, and things like that. Make the configuration, and the platform can continue ingesting this data. It can handle incoming data with record-level deduplicating and other various signature efforts that we go through in terms of the platform can provide. It has a very flexible schema for dynamic routing of workloads on priority as well as available capacity. So when we get spikes of data, the platform can scale to the spike. That's the beauty of this platform. It provides us the operational, functional, performance, and resilience improvements. And it is a strategic enabler for us. It helps us to start digging more into the reproducible AI analytics areas. And also, the platform is cloud agnostic. It can run on any cloud and on-prem. So it provides us the capabilities to work towards the data sovereignty and data governance and the terms and conditions according to our clients. It provides us the speed and the scale we need to operate. So once we have this data ready, we have identified a lot of different areas in terms of optimizing the process that enables our audit teams in order to accomplish the audit process much faster. From a machine learning standpoint, we are currently using a lot of different algorithms to parse this data, learn from the data, and then apply them. The general methodology, what we have across the board is like, we start with some subset of accurately labeled data. We split the labeled data into test and training sets, and iteratively we train the models and provide a lot of varying modeling parameters, potentially doing additional feature engineering and measuring the model accuracy for the outcome of the process. And we vary the input and train the splits. Run other tests to guard against our overfitting of this AI/ML model identification. This purely helps our audit teams in order to perform their work faster, efficient, and also it gives them the confidence and they can achieve the accuracy that they're looking for. For example, in the we can talk about how we are utilizing this AI/ML automation and recovery audits towards the email processing, towards our Panoptic platform and other areas. It allows us to enhance the search of emails relevant to potential claims. So rather than an individual auditor going through email by email identifying, these models can help our auditors to find the potential emails out of the millions of emails that we need to dig through. That's where the power comes in. It helps to detect the errors to eliminate false positives, and also our models can process any document type, the document that comes with the email as an attachment. It could be of any type, and we route it through the OCR process if the document is not readable. So it's all the solution we provide as part of the AI/ML automation has the capability in terms of finding the text that we need that provides the capability towards finding claims and identifying the claims and creating the claims, and then allowing us to do much more research on the claims. Our machine learning algorithms can provide the capability of an email leading to a claim and rank them in quality so that our auditors can find the potential email specific to a claim and route them through the claim process. Other areas within PRGX, especially towards the Panoptic Compliance Audit Program, we are utilizing the AI/ML capabilities towards the NLP, natural language processing, where we do a lot of free text analysis, information extraction. It helps us to find contextual data in terms of potential for a claim or other areas what our audit scope is towards. It also helps us to do the decision support very easily with claim identification based on the confidence level and also the opportunity that we can identify with all this AI/ML process. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover as part of this technical overview. I would like to hand it over to Jin on the analytics.
All right, thanks, Amir. So my name is Jin Rowe. I head up the analytics program at PRGX. So anything that is analytics-based or visualization-based, I own. And really, one of the first questions that I get asked is, so what is analytics in your world, and what are you defining that as? So very simply, one of the main things that we deal with is making sure that when we have data and calculations for our customers, that we're able to take that and not just turning over crunching numbers or crunching calculations, but that we're turning over answers and insights. So very simply, as we go through this, when I talk about analytics, that's the end result that we're trying to get to. What are the answers and next steps and decision points that we can support with the data so that people can move to the next step, move things forward, generate value, generate gains and insights and next steps. So as we do that, you'll see a couple of different things here. And just as a point of reference, I do handle some of our internal analytics that really focus on the recovery analytics, the recovery audits, and claims that we generate from our customers, and all the systematic reporting and dashboard that is a result of the work that Amir and Greg just talked about. But for this purpose, I'm actually going to focus on the other side of things, which we call advanced analytics. And you can think of that as when you have all this data, when you have all your customers' data that is revolving around invoices, payments, vendors, product, and we have vast amounts of it, there must be a lot of great things you can do with that data. So what other value, what other results, what other insights can you actually generate from that? And that's where I'm going to be focusing for this session. And the answer to that is a lot, right? So one of the main things that we have on hand that makes us quite a bit unique is that we use this purpose-built platform that is able to ingest and handle these huge sources of data from our customers. And again, we're pulling from multiple sources, from multiple customers, and with a combination of expertise among our data scientists, technology stack that we've built up, just for the purpose of being able to handle these massive amounts of data, and applying our expertise and our advanced analytic architects and SMEs on it, with even some support from machine learning and other applications, we're actually able to now help our customers tackle some of these large enterprise challenges. And I'll give you some examples in just a second of what are the normal sets that we deal with a lot. And sometimes we do need additional data, because obviously there's not, you can't solve everything with just the data that you have, but it provides an incredible starting point. It provides a vast set of data that you can already gain a lot of data and insights from. And with that foundation, when you actually can add some additional data, there's a lot more that you can actually solve and a lot more you can produce. And the end result is, again, as I mentioned, we want to get to the solutions and insights, and not just pretty pictures, visualizations, reports, dashboards. Those are all kind of tools. But at the end of the day, we want to get to the insights that really generate value and help our customers get to the next step. So let's go through, some of those examples. So, a simple thing that we can actually tackle right off the bat, because we have your invoices and payments and the dates and the vendors, are themes around working capital and DPO. And there's actually a separate webinar that we've just done recently around just this topic. So if you're interested in this, look that one up. I think you'll get a lot more insight as to how we handle this topic. But again, alongside that data that we already have, if you can start bringing in those vendor terms, those invoice terms, those market, benchmarks, then there's a lot of things that you can do to help our customers see, number one, what does your measured days to pay look like? What does your current DPO look like? And how does that compare to what you're supposed to be paying your vendors? And these come from your contracts, your vendor masters, and all of your target setting information. And then if you have that, you can actually calculate the gap that exists between those two, which we can actually quantify as opportunities. So in this case, as a very small picture, imagine if you're paying your group of vendors in 13 days, and you should actually be paying closer to 30, and in this case, about 15-day difference, and that, payments add up to about $1.8 billion. Very simply put, you're lending your vendors $1.8 billion for 15 days interest-free. That's literally what that working capital that you can gain represents. So if we can help our customers identify those gaps and then close those gaps, we can help them generate a lot of value. Plus, there's a lot more we can do to help you model out what could be and should be, even beyond getting value out of what you currently already have on hand. So then moving on, different examples include doing spend and compliance of using the invoice data, using the payments data, using all your vendors and products information, start bringing in the additional contracts and categories data. And now you can have this multi-source spend visualization of all your vendors and categories and regions and data sources. And the real value here is being able to link up your rec to your PO, to your invoices, to your contracts, to your payments, and having that all in a stream where you can see exactly what led to what, and having that compliance control over all of them. And then even beyond that, you can start getting into, looking at your tail spend, looking at your managed and preferred vendors and those relationships, looking at category or vendor consolidation opportunities. These are all available because, we have all this data in the same platform. And at the, just to tie back a little bit to our recovery audit function, imagine now you have the work that you've already done on the recovery audit. And if you can combine that with that vendor's overall spend for the company, you can now measure, what percentage of the overall spend goes through, claims. What types of issues are they generating? How often is it generating? Are there things that we can do preventatively or proactively to try to address that? Because obviously there's this specific type of issue that happens often in this data source or with these vendors or with this specific system. So these are definitely the things that we can get into when we can combine all these different sources of data. And then moving on, this is where it gets a little bit more complicated, a little more time, a little more data science work, is where we start looking at products. For example, we do some great work around product assortment and recommendation and rationalization and harmonization. There's different varieties of that for a lot of our different industries and our customers, but the concept is starts off in a very similar way. The idea is that there are a lot of products that you either buy or sell, and there are a lot of varieties and a lot of differences, but there are a lot of products that you can actually group together because they're essentially a like-for-like product, and they belong in the same group, and they may have their pros and cons, but for the most part, for this specific purpose or for this specific customer or sale, it's pretty much the same thing. And if we can group those together and we can actually measure and analyze which one has greater benefits. It could be in terms of the material performance, the preference, maybe the difference in cost and price and margin, the sales performance, and even promotional and funding. Being able to incorporate all that information and being able to recommend product A that you've been selling all along and recommend a new product because this has a higher margin for you, but it's the same product. Those are the kind of recommendations that we can work with for our direct and indirect customers. And it's a very powerful and popular platform that we work with our customer on. And again, as you can see in the additional data section, we require certainly a lot more data, one of the most important being the product attributes. When we say we're grouping like for like products, we mean that. We look at all the different attributes and we make sure that what we're putting together do belong together and they are actual substitutes that can act in the way. So again, what constitutes a substitutable product definitely differs for each project and customer and industry and even the purpose of why we're doing that. But the end goal is always the same: is can we look at our overall portfolio and create a more efficient, more value generating, costing less, more revenue focused, better for our customers portfolio that is gone through the analysis and we know exactly why we recommended a new product versus an old one. And here are three more very quick examples of some of the topics that we certainly get into and can help our customers with. And these are oftentimes, the fun part is our customers knowing that we have their data, knowing that we've been great partners, and knowing that this is something that they've been able to help with in the past. The great thing is when they come to the analytics experts to help with some of the other challenges that they're having. And that's something that we, always recommend to everybody in these sessions. The people that have your data, the people that know your data are really usually going to be the first ones that you should turn to look for help. And oftentimes they're going to be your best resource in terms of figuring out, I have this kind of challenge that, you're not directly involved, but we love your help with it. And these are some examples that I have. There's a particular stock tracking set of problems that we've been dealing with where, again, just because we deal a lot with retailers and grocers and et cetera, looking at product movement, it's because they usually span multiple systems, from order to sending to suppliers to receipt and decanting and tracking that stock and knowing what's been shipped out to the stores and locations. And also what has been sent by the suppliers to be invoiced, to be paid. All of those systems can have the different complexities of not perfectly being in alignment with each other. And so one of the things that, we've been successful in helping with is showing how all of those, threads link up and where are there discrepancies, because when you can find discrepancies, you can really find those gaps and those holes where there's a lot of value leakages. So being able to track that stock all the way from order to delivery to the stock information to the invoices and being able to compare and contrast all of that and finding those gaps, we've been finding a lot of value there. Another area that has been interesting is looking at rebate analysis. People think rebate is something simple. You buy a certain amount, you get a percentage off, and it's an easy calculation. But we've certainly dealt with a lot of customers that have really complicated and large and rebate programs that really differ by product, by region, by the different customer type, for example. And there's a lot of complexities involved. And one of the things that we've been able to help with, again, is tying the promotions to the sales, to the programs, all the different systems, tying that together so that you can obviously, number one, calculate the rebate or what it should be on an ongoing basis, so you know exactly what you're facing before that the financial numbers hit, and also being able to forecast. And most importantly, actually, where a lot of value has been coming out is in the modeling, being able to model new rebate programs and being able to tie in different scenarios and different outlooks and different numbers and seeing which one is the most beneficial for our bottom line and how do we engage in that program, how do we push it toward that program. That has been really valuable. And one of the last things really is just being able to look at sales and promotion. That item has been, obviously, with the profile of our customers in particular, has been tremendously helpful and important, just because promotion, as it happens, whether it happens at the store level, happens on the back end, front end, is it by scan, is it by volume? It can have a ton of complexities. And one of the things that we've been able to really help with, again, at the end of the day, the bottom line here is that we're able to ingest these massive amounts of data, put that together, and able to generate some really meaningful insights and interesting findings and things where they should pay attention. Because at the end of the day, the idea here is that with the exponential growth of all the data that we have, and you all are facing the same challenges, I'm sure, where you just have more and more data. And one of the really great things an analytics partner can help you with is just telling you and helping you where to look. That's one of the most important things I think we can do, and something that we really focus on. And so with that, I'll go to my last slide here just to wrap things up. The idea here is that, one of the things that I've been happy to find at PRGX and help develop is this idea that, we purpose build this platform that is able to help our customers really use and analyze and get value from their data. All our customers, ourselves, we all have these big challenges that we're trying to solve. And the question is, do you want to be the owner of the business and the things that you're trying to do, or do you want to take a side step and get into this, mode of, building a platform, building a tech stack, hiring data analysts, hiring data scientists, hiring app developers, hiring AI and ML experts to try to solve this large challenge? Or is there a more efficient path forward? So this is the reason why, I really, find the program here that we have at PRGX valuable, and something that, I'm happy to be building this analytics program to help our customers. So just as a quick reminder, again, this is the type of insight that I hope you can find with your analytics partners, and we're happy to have conversation with you about that. And I'll pause there, and Tim, I'll pass it off to you if you have any questions.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, really good insight. Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Greg, and thanks, Amir. So we will take questions, and you can ask those through the Q&A box. We've already got a couple that have come in throughout the duration of the webinar, so I will go through those ones first. And Greg, I think this is one that you could answer, but what audit tasks do you think technology will aid in the future, and which tasks will still rely on auditors and or best practices?
Sure, thanks, Tim. It's a great question. There are so many tasks that are very repeatable that can really be automated, and that's where RPA can be used in terms of macro automation type things. You can leverage AI and ML type tools for the automation as well. So some of the things I mentioned in terms of document reading and extraction, extracting line items from invoices, things like that, there's tools available for that sort of thing to really automate those things. Some of the data scrubbing that has to happen to get to the point where it can be evaluated and audited, those things really shouldn't be touched by human hands anymore. The idea is that all that automation then kind of spits out a list of exceptions that you then start working on that point. So, and even then, a lot of those can go all the way through to a claim. You can build the confidence levels and analysis to say, okay, this is for sure a claim, and it's going to go right on through. So the things that still land on the auditor's plates are really understanding really the trends of contracts and the way that contracts are taking forms and changing over time in different sectors of the market. So what may have been a trend 5 years ago for having certain kind of payment terms and pricing may shift, and so that may affect the types of promotions they're running. And so understanding how that affects the audit logic, those things are still going to rely on auditors to be identifying those things, and that can eventually train AI models, but initially it's the auditors doing some of that heavy thinking. So.
Thanks, Greg. Next question, Amir, this one I think is for you. So there's a lot of data that comes in, obviously, and the question is, how do you keep data secure?
So basically, we have, I'm glad to take that question. Basically, what we do is we follow very strict process and policies, especially towards our ISO SOC1 and SOC2 audit process, so that our infrastructure and everything is covered and with the proper guidelines and process every step of the way. On top of it, the data, when it lands within PRGX, it comes through a secure channel. So the data on flight is encrypted, and also the data at rest is fully encrypted. So, and also on top of it, we don't allow access to anyone to access this data. It is all highly role-based security model that we implement. Only few people can get to the data, things like that. So from a security standpoint, we have rigid process and policies, and also the encryption at rest, and also the compressions that we do in order to save space.
Thanks, Amir. And the last question we've got, which Jen, I think you probably cover off. How long does a typical engagement take to get to the analytical insights?
Yeah, so I'm going to give that awful typical answer of it depends. But just to give a sample range, if we already have the data and if we can actually get things up and running quickly, there's engagements like the working capital DPO project, which can take as short as 3 weeks. For anybody who's worked with a platform partner and built these kind of things and stood one of these platforms up, you realize that's an incredibly short time. But that's because, as I mentioned, we already have the data and we've already invested in the tech stack that allows us to get to that data quickly, get it up and running in our platform, and get you that answer of how much working capital opportunities do you have in a very, very short amount of time. So imagine and compare that to something that you would try to do on your own, and you can kind of start to see where the value really lies. And some of our really longer engagement, where I talked about doing global product aggregation and looking for the substitutable product, because that requires a lot of number one, a lot of data and new data, and also machine learning and new rule building based on your company and what you're trying to achieve, and are these products really like for like, getting all those attributes, building those rules and putting that together. So those kind of larger engagements, more complex engagements can certainly take, I would say typically 12 weeks. And so I would say in the range, we had really long engagement that go up to as much as 16 weeks. But even then, if you look at the journey and the process and what we're doing in that time, you see that that's really not such a long time for some of the really massive amount of lifting that we're doing.
Great, yeah, thanks, Jen. And thanks to all our presenters today, to Greg and Amir also. Really good session, really good conversation, and great tips and great insight into just where recovery audit's going and the benefits of the business. Thanks for listening in to everyone. Like I said earlier, there is additional webinars on the PRGX website, prgx.com, and on our Bright Talk channel as well. We have a number coming up over the coming weeks, so please take a look and tune in. But appreciate you taking out some time of your day, and we look forward to you listening to our next webinar. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.